Hi, Spiders. I am super excited to be here today with Jasper Pendergrass, Jr. for our 2023 Black History Month Spider Spotlight. Jasper is a 98 grad of the University of Richmond, where he majored in sociology and minored in sports management. Jasper was a member of our Spider football team, playing tailback for 5 seasons. And today, Jasper wears many hats as a stunt actor, a voice-over artist, a host for karaoke and various private/public events, and also works as a high school physical education teacher in South Central Los Angeles. So, Jasper, thank you for joining me. Super excited to get started.
Thank you for having me, man. This is an honor.
Awesome. Well, we're just going to get right into it with the first question that I have for you, which is, what was it that drew you to the University of Richmond?
Quite frankly, it was a scholarship. Uh, there, one when I was in high school, of course, I could play a little football pretty well, and one thing that being the middle child of 5 kids, the one thing that I knew that I didn't want to do was make my parents pay for my college education. And I got recruited by a few different schools, bigger schools, and some of them ended up wanting me to walk on for like the first semester, and then I'll get a scholarship later on after that. And right away that didn't go, that wasn't my plan.
Right.
I wanted to have a full ride, and then once we visited the University of Richmond and saw how beautiful the campus was, and met the coaches and some of the guys, that pretty much made my decision easy.
Absolutely. Speaking of beautiful campus, my background here is one of our beautiful buildings. And yeah, spot on. Appreciate you for sharing that. And in addition to that, what was your favorite memory at the University of Richmond once you got here, kind of got acclimated? What was that like?
But once I got there, my most favorite memory, but my absolute favorite memory is winning the Atlantic 10 championship in 1998. That's a memory. That's something that I'll never forget. But when we first got to Richmond, because football players get there about 2 weeks before, so as freshmen, uh, we we just jump right into it.
Yeah.
But once the other students start coming back, and I think back then they called it BSU. Now I think they might call it a multicultural student union. I don't know, but they had started having meetings to where we got to go and see other Black students who were just coming on campus, because coming from an 85% Black high school
Yeah.
or something like that, and coming in Richmond where, out of 3,500 students, back then only about 150 of us were Black. It was, culture shock to say the least.
Yeah.
So having those programs where those meetings where we get to meet other people our age coming in, that's about to go through the same things that we are going to start that same journey. I still remember a lot of those times.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll be happy to know that a lot of those programs still exist. Are still going to make sure that our student athletes and students on campus of color are supported as they're making some of these transitions to the University of Richmond. So we're still going strong with a lot of those programs. But to keep us rolling, I know you had a goal of becoming a player in the NFL. Could you tell us a little bit about what your journey was like?
My well, just because I was a fifth year senior, so I was done with school in December
Yeah.
of '98. So after that, we just worked out almost every day. We trained. We worked with at the time one of the track coaches trying to get faster and things like that. So that journey it wasn't a whole lot different than our normal off season football training, with the exception of now we're getting ready to work out for pro teams, every week, a couple of times a week. So that was a little bit, nerve wracking, because we all as kids have that same dream, especially if you're any good at the sport. And so once that time comes, you're like, oh, it's here. We gotta do it. So, but it was cool. It was cool. I mean, it didn't work out the way that it didn't end the way I would have wanted to, but it just still opened up a lot of other doors for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of some of the doors that were opened up, whether that's a result of football, the University of Richmond, where did your career take you next?
It's weird. Uh, so after the draft, of course, I did, the draft 3 days, 2, 3 days looking at the TV, which you should never do. If you either you're gonna get drafted or you're not. Um, but a couple of weeks later, maybe a month later, I get to my parents' house and I have a message on the voicemail. They had voicemail. They had voicemails back then. People don't do that now, and now we just text. But one of my teammates or ex teammates, Seth, was on the voicemail saying, "Hey Jasper, my brother's girlfriend works for the art department of a movie, and they need football players. We got to go try out in Baltimore." So four of us went up there. When I get there, they had put us through. They were putting us through a football combine, and I was in the best shape of my life. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And so, needless to say, I went out there and I pretty much wrecked that combine. Uh, so 3 of us went up there. 2 of us ex-spiders made that movie. Myself and Joe Douglas, who's the general manager of the New York Jets right now.
yeah,
Uh, 2 of us made that, and and I credit 2 people for getting me started in the industry. A man by the name of Alan Graff, and another guy by the name of Mark Ellis, because those are the 2 guys who hired me for that movie, which was the Replacements. Way back in 1999, I was 22 years old, and
wow.
that really started the ball rolling in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate you sharing that. And I know you've been in a ton of movies since then as well. And, for a while now, there have been a lot of conversations about, the lack of representation of people of color in the film industry. And I know I was looking at one of your interviews and you mentioned that being part of Wakanda, is like being a part of history. So what does that mean to you? I can see your artwork in the back there. Can you talk to us a little bit about that experience?
But yeah, the drawing over my left shoulder is from the first Black Panther. My cousin Kim, I sent her a picture, and I said, "Can you draw this picture?" And put Chadwick somewhere in there, Chadwick Boseman, and she did it, and it's beautiful. I posted it online, and that's one of those things. That's one of those memories that I'll always cherish. But yeah, but back to your question, yeah. So now, like we grew up with we had a few Black TV shows that we watched and we loved.
Yeah,
But still, even back then, it still wasn't a large Black or minority representation in the TV and film, especially not film. And
yeah,
then you will have other shows where you'll see 1 or 2 minorities in those films. So Black Panther was the first time uh, that you see all Black an all Black class, almost an all Black cast, but it put Black people as superheroes. And
yeah,
I've never seen a movie where a Black person was a superhero, and that
yeah,
was powerful. And I'll never forget the first time stepped on a rehearsal field in Atlanta. Uh, it was you looked out on this field, and it was 70. I think it was 70 Black stuntmen and women,
yeah,
and you look out and you see like it's something that I'd never seen before,
yeah,
and I didn't see it again until Black Panther 2, because it's just such special people doing special things.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially some of you know the female stunt people. You don't see a whole lot of that in Hollywood, and these girls is just majestic, and the way they move and flip and all these things. It was just really amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like an awesome experience. I know how much Black Panther means to me, and again, being able to see that representation and see folks represented as superheroes was something that was really powerful for me. I know our nieces have their their figurines of the folks that were in the movie, and it's just a special special thing to see that the movie itself has just created a lot of excitement for people of color. So again, thank you for your role in that and your representation in that film as well. But gonna keep going with some of the lessons that you've learned as a student athlete. How have some of the lessons that you've learned helped you in your career?
Just learn how to pretty much multitask, or just keep on going, like persevering. Because being a student in college is hard enough.
Yeah.
But then when you're a student athlete, you have to juggle so much more. Right? Like during football season, you get up, you go to class. As soon as class is over, you have to go to meetings. Then you have practice, and then you go eat, and then you have, for you, somebody like me, who when I first got to college, didn't take the academic part as seriously as I should have.
Yeah.
Then once Coach Reed came in, he implemented study hall, so we had to go to study hall. And then once you got to study hall, you probably had a few hours before you had to go to sleep, and you had to get up and do that all over again.
Yeah.
And then in the off season, it was different as well, because you had 6 a.m. runs. So then you had to get up at 5:30 in the morning, and then you go to breakfast, then you go to class, then you go study hall, then a few days a week. So if anything, it teaches you how to multitask. And like for me, for that to now, it also teaches me how to keep going, because you hear no a lot, like in the regular job. If you interview for a quote unquote regular job, they might get back to you and say, hey, you had a strong interview,
Yeah.
but we decided to go another way.
Right.
But in this industry, you do an audition, and then you may get a call back. But after that, if you don't get it, you don't hear anything. They don't tell you nothing. They don't tell you no negative feedback, no positive feedback. You don't hear anything.
Right.
So, but you just have to do that audition, do that callback, put it out your head, and look to the next one. And if you hear back from the one you just did, great. If not, you're looking on to the next one, man, because you have to keep on. You just have to keep on.
Yeah.
Keep on. That's the one thing that being a student athlete taught me, man, because you had to be on the schedule, and you had to work towards your goal every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you for that. And just to follow right on that, based off of some of the experiences that you've had, whether in your career while you were at Richmond as a student, what advice would you give to current student athletes of color?
So I work at a high school in South Central Los Angeles. It's called Augustus Hawkins High School. And outside of the weight room, there's a quote, and I'm gonna paraphrase it. It says, "The road to success isn't paved with perfection, but by the ability to consistently overcome adversity and failure." Right, and so and I took a picture of that day, probably about 5-6 years ago, because that's pretty much how I live my life. It's like it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to. Sometimes people automatically catch what they want,
Right.
and that's great for them. But for the majority of us, we have to embrace the process. It's one of those things that was on the football wall my third year. Embrace the process. I think there's a process for everything. And you're going to fall down, you got to keep getting back up. You know what I mean? Don't just never quit. You know what I mean? So my advice would be, don't you dare give up, because every time you give up, every time you wanted one audition, that one commercial that I got back in the day, I got up and I was like, man, I don't want to drive all the way to Hollywood, man, and sitting there with 50 people and still not hear nothing. But I was like, man, just go to that audition.
Yeah.
And I went to the audition, and I ended up booking that commercial. And I was not about to go to that audition, because it's a grind.
Right.
But you know what? Life's a grind, and it's that grind isn't always built for everybody. Some people won't always go the safe route. But if you for anything that's worth having is worth struggling for, as long as you keep on going, and as long as you don't quit. Because I have a long way to go. I've done a lot, and I have a long way to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So being at the University of Richmond, it taught me, like, we going through some of those things with the coaches and the teachers and things like that. And sometimes you hated it.
Yeah.
but it teaches you a lot, man. It teaches you. It's one of those things. It helped build your foundation. It's giving me a strong foundation, right? And then sometime the roof may fall in. I'm gonna keep on getting up. If it falls in, I'm gonna keep on. I'm gonna build another one because we're gonna be here. I might as well stay busy. I do a lot, and I plan on doing more because I'm stay busy because I gotta go. You
Right.
know what I mean? So in order to reach your goals, man, you have to just keep on.
Yeah, for sure. That's great advice. And, I know you talked about, getting knocked down a few times. You also talked about, hearing no a lot in the industry. So, there's been a lot of focus around Black health and wellness and Black joy. What does taking care of yourself look like for you?
Self care is really important to me. So I go for runs. I love kickbox. I love boxing and kickboxing. Um, I love riding a spin bike. I've been riding horses for the almost a year now. Trying to get in one of these cowboy shows that
Right.
haven't been created yet, but
Right.
one of those things. I train for things in the future that I don't even know that's coming.
Right.
But yeah, so I just love being physical. But yeah, the things that I love spin class. I love boxing class. I love riding the horses now. I love running, and so it's just and all those things like a lot of students that catch me running on the track during lunchtime. I only got 30 minutes, but I got to get out there
Right.
and get this in because if I don't want the stress levels to from all these kids to get at me. So let me go on this run and make sure I decompress. So it's one of those things that really helps me.
Yeah. Right. I appreciate you sharing that. It's a big focus, making sure we're taking care of ourselves. And I'm wondering, with the students that you're working with at your school, what has it been like coming back to them and kind of being able to share some of the experiences that you've had, especially with your most recent film? What has that been like for you?
Well, a lot of them, I try not to. I never bring it up. So a lot of times, if a student comes to me about something, they always say, "Oh, I saw you. Were you in this or were you in that?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because I kind of don't want it to take away from whatever class we're doing or whatever. And like anybody, but a lot of people. I mean, I love talking about myself. I'm a social person, and when I came to Richmond, I was social, but I was still a little. One of my roommates, one of my roommates, Eric, one time told me that I was soft spoken,
Yeah.
and I've never really heard that before. But I think I was in a little bit of a shell that you couldn't see because I was an athlete, but I was in a little bit of a shell that I kind of came out of after my first year there. But so I never really talk about it. But when I do, like some people, sometimes they'll ask me about advice, about the film industry and things like that. Because I've been a SAG actor, stunt person for 20, 22 years, 23 years, something like that. So I do have bits of advice to give them. So I'll give them the basic things. Well, the first thing for the students, I'm like, first thing you got to graduate.
Right.
I saw your grade point average, and you need to first you have to graduate, and once you graduate, then you can start making some of these decisions because out here in Hollywood, sometimes, a lot of times it's not college. A lot of times, well, I think that's most places, but here, the TV and film industry is an actual avenue that they can jump right into
Yeah.
without going to college. So I'm like, once you graduate, then you can look at all of your options, and then you can figure out what option would be best for you and your family.
Yeah. Absolutely. Jasper, this has been awesome. I appreciate you taking the time. I know student athletes are going to get a lot out of this. But again, thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for the representation that you are providing for our community. And again, we wish you much success in your next big film. But again, thank you for sharing some time with us and coming back to support the Spiders.